Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
My name is Amelia. I am 53 years old. Many years ago, I worked for a very rich family. Their house was big and full of beautiful things. There were many rooms, big gardens, and soft chairs. I cleaned the house, washed the floors, and helped in the kitchen every day. Darren was the father, Elizabeth was the mother, and Roger was their little boy. I liked my job, and I felt happy there. I thought I would stay for many years. The family had many expensive things. They had gold lamps, silver plates, and old paintings. Elizabeth had many rings, necklaces, and watches. She loved one gold watch very much. She wore it every day and kept it close to her. I knew it was very important to her. I was always careful when I cleaned her room. One morning, everything changed. Elizabeth could not find her gold watch. She looked in her room, but it was not there. She looked in the kitchen and the garden. She asked Darren and Roger if they saw it. Then she asked me. I said I did not see it. She looked at me for a long time. I felt cold inside. That afternoon, things got worse. Darren called me to the living room. Elizabeth stood next to him, and Roger hid behind her. Darren spoke with a hard voice. He said they could not find the watch. He said they trusted me, but now they were not sure. I tried to speak, but my voice was weak. Darren told me to leave the house. He said I must go and not come back. Elizabeth did not look at me. Roger said nothing. I packed my small bag. My hands were shaking. I wanted to cry, but I did not. I walked out of the big house. I sat outside on the street with my bag. I did not know where to go. I felt small and lonely. People passed by, but no one looked at me. I thought about the house, the garden, and little Roger. I thought about the happy days I had lost. As I sat there, I wondered why they believed I took the watch. I was always kind and honest. I cleaned their house like it was my own. I loved working there, but now they thought I was a thief. I closed my eyes and wished the day would end. I stayed on the street for a long time, feeling cold and tired. The day was slow, and the sun went down. I thought about where I could sleep that night. I had no home and no family in the city. My bag was small and light. It only had a few clothes and some coins. I got up and began to walk, but my legs felt heavy and weak. I found a small bench near a park. It was not soft, but it was a place to sit. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but my mind was full of sad thoughts. I missed my little room in the big house. I missed hearing Roger laugh in the morning. The next day, I woke up early. My back hurt from sleeping on the bench. My clothes were dirty, and my hair was messy. I walked to a small cafe and used the last coins I had to buy a piece of bread. The woman at the counter looked at me with cold eyes. I sat near the window and ate slowly. Later, I went to the market to look for work. I asked many people if they needed help. Some people said no, and some didn't even answer me. A man selling apples told me to move away. I tried to stay strong, but my heart was breaking. I wanted to cry, but I held the tears inside. I walked all day, but I found no work. That evening, I sat again near the park. I thought about my life before. I thought about Elizabeth and Darren. I thought about Roger's small hands when he gave me flowers. I wondered if they missed me at all. Maybe they forgot about me quickly. Maybe they were happy now without me. Suddenly, I heard a voice calling my name. I looked up and saw a woman running toward me. It was Elizabeth. Her face was red. She wore a long coat, and in her hand she held something small and shiny. My heart began to beat fast. I stood up, but I did not know what to say. Why was she here? What did she want from me now? Elizabeth came close and held out her hand. In her hand was the gold watch. It was not lost. It was never stolen. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said they found the watch. It had fallen behind a big chair in the living room. They only found it when they moved the furniture to clean. She said she was very sorry for everything. Her face was full of sadness. I looked at the watch and then at Elizabeth. I felt happy that I was not a thief, but then I also felt sad for all the pain. I felt angry that they did not trust me. I wanted to scream, but I said nothing. Elizabeth asked me to come back to work. She said they missed me. She said Roger cried for me every night. But I said nothing. I did not take her hand. I did not move. I looked at Elizabeth standing there with a watch in her hand. I thought about the cold words they said to me. I thought about the long night I spent on the bench. I thought about how they did not believe me when I told the truth. I wanted to forgive her, but it was not easy. Elizabeth spoke again. She said Darren felt very bad too. She said Roger asked for me every morning. She told me they wanted me back at the house. She said I would have my room, my bed, and my work again. She promised they would never doubt me again. I listened to her words, but I stayed still. I was not sure if I could trust them again. Trust is easy to break and hard to fix. It is hard to go back to a place where your heart was broken. Elizabeth put the watch into her pocket and wiped her eyes. She said she understood if I could not forgive them. She said she just wanted me to know the truth. Her voice was soft and full of tears. I could see she really felt sorry, but I still felt cold inside. I thought about finding a new place where people would trust me. Sometimes it is better to move forward than to go back. Elizabeth waited for me to say something. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I just shook my head slowly. I picked up my bag and began to walk away. I heard Elizabeth call my name again, but I did not turn back. I needed to find a new path, a better one. I did not know where I would sleep that night. I did not know where I would work. But I knew one thing. I knew I wanted a new beginning. I passed a small shop with a bright window. Inside, a woman was putting bread into baskets. She looked kind and busy. I watched her for a moment. Perhaps I could find work there. Maybe this was a sign. I opened the door to the small shop. The woman behind the counter looked up and smiled at me. Her smile was kind and soft. I walked slowly to the counter and said hello. I asked if she needed any help. I told her I could clean, carry baskets, and help with customers. The woman's name was Sophia. She said she owned the bakery with her husband, Andrew. She looked at my tired face and dirty clothes for a moment. She said nothing. I waited and hoped. Then she said I could help clean the bakery in the mornings. She said it would not be much money, but I could also have food and a place to sleep. My eyes filled with tears, but I quickly looked down and said, "Thank you." Sophia showed me a small room behind the bakery. It had a little bed, a table, and a small window. It was not big or beautiful like my old room, but it was warm and safe. I put my bag on the floor and sat on the bed. I felt so tired but also a little stronger. I had a place to stay now. I had a chance to start again. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in many days. The next morning, I woke up early. I washed my face and brushed my hair. I wanted to look clean and ready. I swept the floor, cleaned the tables, and washed the windows. Sophia smiled when she saw my work. She said I was fast and careful. Her husband Andrew also smiled and gave me a fresh piece of bread. I felt happy again. I was not a lost girl anymore. Sophia and Andrew never spoke to me with cold voices. They trusted me. One evening, after a long day of work, Sophia sat with me. She asked me about my past. I told her a little about the rich family, the lost watch, and how they sent me away. She listened carefully and said that sometimes people make mistakes. She said that good people can be hurt by the mistakes of others. I felt a little better when I heard her words. I began to smile more. One afternoon, as I cleaned the window, I saw Roger across the street. He held his mother's hand tightly. Elizabeth stood beside him, looking at the bakery. For a moment our eyes met. I felt my heart jump. Roger waved a little hand at me. Elizabeth smiled sadly. Then they walked away into the busy street, and I watched them go without a word. I stood by the window for a long time. I thought about running after them. I thought about calling their names, but I did nothing. I knew I was not the same girl anymore. I had changed. My life had changed. Sometimes love is not enough when trust is broken. I wiped the window slowly and went back to my work. Sophia saw that I was quiet. She did not ask me any questions. She just smiled and said, "You are safe here." I smiled back and said, "Thank you." I knew that not everyone needed to know my past. What mattered now was my future. As the days passed, the bakery grew busier. One evening, Andrew came to me with a small envelope. Inside was my first week's salary. I held the money in my hand and felt happy. It was not much, but it was mine. I had earned it with my own work. I decided to save it carefully. I dreamed of one day renting my own little room, maybe even starting my own bakery. Even though my heart still had some old scars, I felt strong. I had gone through the pain and built a new life for myself. One sunny afternoon, as I arranged flowers in the shop, I saw a letter on the table. It had my name on it. I opened it with shaking hands. She wrote about Roger. She wrote about missing me. She wrote about regret. She asked if one day I could visit. I held the letter in my hands for a long time. I could hear Elizabeth's voice in every line. I could see Roger's small hands reaching for mine. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I needed time to think. That evening, I told Sophia about the letter. When I finished, she simply said, "Follow your heart." Her words stayed in my mind all night. I knew I could not stay stuck in the past. I had built a new life, but the old life was still a part of me. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I wore my best dress and brushed my hair carefully. I told Sophia and Andrew that I would be gone for a day. They smiled and wished me luck. I began to walk. My heart was beating fast. When I reached the big house, I stood outside the gate for a long time. Then I rang the bell and waited. Elizabeth opened the door. She moved aside to let me in without saying anything. Roger ran to me and hugged me tightly. My eyes filled with tears. Elizabeth watched us with wet eyes too. She said she was sorry again and again. She said she never should have doubted me. I listened quietly. Forgiveness is not easy, but it is possible when hearts are open. We sat in the garden and drank tea. Roger showed me his toys and told me about school. Elizabeth asked about my life in the bakery. I told them about Sophia and Andrew and the kindness I found there. It felt strange but good to sit there again. When the sun began to set, I stood up to leave. Elizabeth asked if I wanted to stay for dinner, but I said no. I needed to return to my new home. I hugged Roger and kissed his forehead. I shook Elizabeth's hand and smiled. I felt no anger, no sadness, only peace. I thought about the lost watch, the lost trust, and the lost home. But I also thought about what I had found: strength, kindness, and a new family. Sometimes, losing something shows you what really matters.